Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at this presentation. It's a pleasure for OKR to host Entreflow, who've organized this event today. Uh, Secret Weapon Business Chats, the fundamentals of remote working. As many of you are aware, it's been over a year now. A lot of us have been working from home, change of environment. So it's an important discussion that we'd like to touch on today. And working with a specialist who's going to present today, we have Bronwen Kenyon, HR manager, Entreflow Consulting Group, years of experience. Myself, I'm the VP of Business Development for OKR Financial and Marketing. And I'll be fielding the questions today as we go through this presentation. Just to touch on the three areas that Entreflow themselves, what they specialize in are accounting, HR, and systems to help businesses do their marketing and implement different ERP systems to help them function better. On the HR side, it could be for a startup all the way to a corporation with all various different types of services. On the accounting, from CFO services to basic accounting and bookkeeping services and corporate taxes, and set you up for raising capital as well. And that's what Entreflow specializes in. And there's a lot more to them as you reach out to them. OKR Financial, we're a very young company, been around 5 years, and we specialize in helping companies leverage non-dilutive solutions, utilizing government programs to grow their businesses and find a pathway to equity. So to get this event off today, the quick agenda is we're going to be discussing team structures, communication tools, employee engagement, team appreciation, and the COVID wall. So feel free to ask questions anytime you like using the chat box down below. We don't have the mics on, and as the questions come typed in, I will find the right point in time to ask Bronwen the questions, and she'll answer them as best as she can. So without further ado, please take it away.
All right, thanks for that. Really excited to be with you guys here today. I just wanted to start off the webinar to put out a little bit of a poll here to see, prior to March 2020, were you part of a virtual team, or was this something that's kind of been new to you over the past year? I'll just give everybody a minute here just to take the opportunity to vote. The poll is up. Okay, I'll just give that a little bit longer here. Okay, can we close the poll on that one there and just check out the results? Great. Okay, so we have 82% of our attendees today were not a virtual team prior to March of 2020. And in terms of returning to the office in some capacity this year, we're looking at about 50% of the people unsure, 14% of the attendees today are not returning to the office, and 36% are going to be returning to the office. So for those of you that are, unsure about whether or not you're going to be returning to the office, this might, I hope that you can take something away from the webinar today to be able to help make that decision. For those of you that aren't returning to the office or are returning to the office, again, we're going to be talking a little bit about what that transition might look like and ways that you can set up your organization to continue to be successful in this remote working environment. First thing that I just wanted to touch on today is a little bit about structures. So in the past couple months, we've been seeing lots of changes, obviously, from 82% of the attendees today weren't a virtual team prior to March of last year. Where you're obviously underwent a huge transformation from moving from being in the office to moving to being a remote team, potentially on some sort of capacity. There's some of you may be part of the time virtual, and others may be fully virtual. So, right now that we've been in this for almost a year, it's a really good chance to kind of take a step back and look at, does the way that you've set up your organization still make sense in what you're anticipating happening over the next year? One of the exercises that we've been doing a lot of is current and future state org chart planning. So just taking a step back, really looking at the organization and seeing, does this make sense still for the working environment that we're going to be seeing for, potentially the next year, potentially the next 2 years. If this is something that you're looking to do quite permanently, where you are going to be having a little bit of a virtual team and some of the team coming into the office, it's definitely worth going and really looking at your organizational charts and to ensure that they make sense. One of the things that we've seen a lot of is organizations putting in team leads into some of the departments where there may be a lot of direct reports to one manager. This helps with communication and really getting that communication to flow nicely through the organization and ensuring that things aren't getting missed. One of the things I think is very hard right now to get communicated across is, projects that are being worked on where there may be some potential blocks with everybody, maybe they're working different time zones, working on different projects, meetings throughout the day. It's nice to be able to have one person who is the main communicator to the management team or to the upper level executive teams, depending on the size of your organization right now. So, something to look into. There's this great organizational chart structure that you can look at that's, you can build pods and guilds within your organization. So pods of people within different departments, different job titles that are all kind of working towards the same thing. And then guilds of team members that are in the same position that can work together to kind of information share. So, something to think about, does your organizational chart still make sense for what you are, going to be seeing your team looking like for the next year here? Another thing that we've been doing a lot of lately is RACI exercises. So running through all the responsibilities of the positions within your organization and really looking to see, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's contributing, and who needs to remain informed on the different job tasks within the your positions in your organization. What we're seeing a lot of is shifts of responsibilities and what teams are needing to take on. There's lots of automation tools that are coming in, so maybe relieving some workload off of some employees, but also making it harder for other employees. So, doing this RACI exercise is really great to be able to see, do the positions that you have within the organization still make sense? Is there anything that we kind of need to make as an adjustment here for this?
So Bronwen, I have a question.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Could you give examples of what you've heard so far, where there've been current communication breakdowns in organizations, or the bottlenecks that you've been seeing or been hearing about that you've been advising on?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what we're hearing is like departmental breakdowns, which is something that happens, even when we're all sitting in the office together, you still see communication drops and communication bumps, I guess you could call them, in between departments. And this is becoming even more so noticeable now with virtual teams. So when you're not able to just walk into another part of the building, tap on somebody's shoulder and say, hey, how did you get here? Or where's this that I'm looking for? And you're really having to use online tools more. It's making it harder to, I think there's a lot more that's being dropped and a lot more confusion in between teams. So, what we've been coming in and doing is saying, okay, well, what's the best way to get that information across? And I will, in a couple slides here, I've got some suggestions on how to ensure that the communication is streamlined throughout the organization. But just, so we'll talk a little bit about that, but it really becomes departmental, or, working with some of potentially the even if you have a flat structure organization that doesn't have, a very hierarchical feel to it, it's still possible that some of the entry-level positions aren't getting all the information from management that they need to, because of the fact that you may not be having as much communication and as much, water cooler talk, you can call it, as you would be if you were in the office. So I guess like reviewing your current communication also. So what are those breakdowns? What are the bottlenecks in your processes? Bottlenecks could be one of the ones that we see quite frequently for us as an accounting firm, for example, is getting access to all the tech that our team needs. So sometimes there's a bottleneck in that process, just being like, hey, I don't have access to this. And with getting that kind of worked out and seeing what's the best way to do that. Maybe it's assigning it to somebody else who isn't in as many meetings. Maybe there's tools that you can use like LastPass or something like that to help with clearing out those bottlenecks in your process. So, organizational structures, good to look at first and foremost, just to ensure that it still makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish this year. Next thing I just wanted to, talk about is, well, the topic of this webinar here today is the remote work. So one of the things that I would really consider as a HR professional is policies. So do you have a remote work policy in place? I think that a lot of people were considering not putting one in place because they're like, when we come to January, I'm going to be going back to the office. But if you're looking at any capacity to continue to have remote workers, I highly recommend putting a policy in place. Some of the things that can be included in that policy could be like limit of number of meetings in a day, what the working location is, when people are able to travel again. Are you okay with your team members, scooting up to Whistler for the week and working from a hotel room during the evening so that they can ski or snowboard during the day? Is that okay for your organization? Is that not okay? What kind of communication needs to be had around that? Introducing an hours online. So, we have, everybody works better during different times of the day. So for our night owls, do we just need to have a little bit of an overlap for certain hours? What are the structures that need to be put in place there to ensure that the team is overlapping? And then constantly checking in on how to make it better. So one of the things that I can say is to really get your team engaged in the changes and in the policies and in the remote working world is to check in constantly. Let them be a part of this process. Ask them what's been working, what hasn't been working. Let them know that, we're going to be seeing this probably for the remainder of 2021 at minimum. How has it been so far? Where has been some pain points for you guys over the past year? It's the best engagement that you can get from your team, and is really by including them in these decisions. And then really just putting structures in place to allow for balance. I think what we're hearing a lot of right now is people are so absolutely done with virtual meetings. And I'm saying that as we're on the middle of a virtual webinar, but it's true. We're hearing this across all the organizations that we're working with right now. People are done with the virtual happy hours. They're kind of done with the virtual lunches. They are in virtual meetings all day. They're jumping from one Zoom meeting to the next. And they're really struggling to find that break. And for a lot of people, myself included, without having a separate office space, your kitchen table is now all of a sudden becoming your office space. So it's hard to kind of step away from the work mindset like you do when you would leave an office. Your office at the end of the day, generally you can, you got a little bit of travel time where you can have a little bit of a break, but teams are really finding it hard to stop working essentially at the end of the day. So put some structures in place to allow for this balance to be there. Lots of the communication tools have notification preferences. This is something I just was onboarding some new employees onto our team yesterday. And in the middle of the onboarding, I was like, please go set up your notification preferences. Stop the notifications at a certain point in the day so that, at 6 o'clock or 5:30, you can really turn your brain off for a while, because, the burnout rate is just so much higher right now than what we've been seeing, especially because everybody's done with those virtual meetings. And enforce breaks throughout the day. So it could be as simple as just throwing in a calendar meeting in everybody's calendar that's called lunch, reminding the team to go and eat their lunch, take a 30-minute break, go sit outside if it's not, snowing or pouring rain, but, really try to help create a culture where it's okay to stop in the middle of the day and take that break that you need in order to refresh and reset your brain for the afternoon meetings. So these are just a couple things, this could be part of your remote working policy, but this is something that as you're bringing on new team members and working with your current team, you really want to put those structures in place and make it clear. Okay, a little bit about communication tools. So we were talking about the communication breakdowns. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was asynchronous communication. So this is something that I think is what will helps with the breakdowns that we have that we're seeing in between departments. Also in providing a structure for setting a couple core hours. So maybe your core hours are from 10 to 2 o'clock, and the team's allowed to work anytime before and after that, depending on what works for them. The only way that this is going to be successful is with asynchronous communication. So this is a way of providing to your team the who, what, where, when, why, and hows of the task in place. So, who needs to complete the task? What is the task all about? Where is the tools that they need in order to be able to complete the task? When is the task done by, due by? Why are we doing this is important. And, how can we overcome any road bumps that you may see? So it could be as simple as, I need this report for this client. I need it by the end of the day on Friday. We need this because we're having a meeting with them. And if you get stuck, please reach out to this employee. What this allows for is in your communication tools, so your Slack, your Skype, your Teams, you're able to, if you may come over as a big paragraph and it might be a little overwhelming to the team, but they actually have all the information they need to be able to execute on completing that task for you. And you don't need to be online at the same time. So what this really does is it allows for the flexible working hours. So if you are the type of person that likes to work until 1 o'clock in the morning because you work better at night, you don't need to be online at the same time as a person who likes to start work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Because if you guys have this communication where you're giving everybody upfront exactly what they need, it makes for a smoother communication line.
Well, got a question here for you there.
Yeah.
Does Entreflow provide templates and guideline structure so a company who has no idea of how to do this, they can actually do this?
It was an article that I had read from Harvard Business Review, and I was having a hard time finding it again yesterday. But really, the idea behind it is just to be able to provide the who, what, where, when, why, and how in your communication. So instead of saying, "Hey, can you help me with this?" and waiting for the person to respond back and say yes. Okay, so I need you to help me with this, this, and this, and just at the very beginning say, I need help with this task. Are you able to help me with it? This is what it looks like. This is when it needs to be done by. Here's some potential complications that I could see you needing to overcome in order to get this done. Is this doable? It allows for all the information to be provided up front. So it's something that we are internally trying to put into practice a little bit more here. It does take some time. It's a little hard to get used to, and especially for extroverts on the team who just want to call up the other person and be like, and talk through the task. It takes a little bit of time to get used to. This also helps for those people that aren't very good at listening skills and not even that they're not good listeners. It's more just that they learn better via text, right? Everybody needs to be able to read and go back and review what's been shared with them. And sometimes it's, with everything else that's going on, it's hard to remember everything that's been said to you. So this is another way to just really cut that confusion internally, especially if you've got CEO, CFO, who's very busy and needs to be able to just quickly share some information. It's good to try to practice this asynchronous communication method. So other things for communication, creating meeting structures. So, try not to overkill on meetings. It always makes me think of that, survived another meeting that should have been an email meme always pops into my head. In here, what happens if we have too many meetings back to back is, and I'm sure everybody's aware of this, but you're not allowing for time in between meetings for team to be able to download exactly what they've learned, be able to put an email together or whatever they need to do to be able to move on to the next meeting. So make sure that you're review any reoccurring meetings. Are there any that can be removed? We actually used to have every single morning, we would have a daily scrum. So we would take 15 minutes every single morning to run through the top 3 tasks that we were looking to achieve for the day, any roadblocks and any support that we would need. And then we were getting feedback from the team that it was just feeling like a lot of meetings. So we decided to cut the daily scrums and all we had was a weekly team meeting. So then the weekly team meeting was great, but then again, we were finding, everybody wasn't totally engaged. There were some things missing from it. So we were like, why don't we try bi-weekly team meetings? Moved to the bi-weekly team meetings, and now we're getting the feedback that the team's not seeing each other enough. So now what we've created is a Monday and Friday 15-minute check-in. So the Monday's what's your goals for the week, Friday's a little bit of a fun check-in just to share some information, share something that we've learned for the week. So trying to just deleting or canceling all of your reoccurring meetings with the team or canceling those town halls doesn't always have the desired outcome. It's really, check in with the team and see kind of what's working for them and what's not working for them, and try to have it so that we're not having an overkill on meetings. And ensure that all your meetings have a purpose. There's nothing worse than showing up to a meeting with no agenda, not knowing what you're going to be, what you need to prepare for, what you're hoping to cover, who's going to be there perhaps, and kind of what the expected outcomes are. So, put that in place. That even just having that agenda in the meeting calendar invitation prior to the meeting will help with setting everybody up for success, and there's less confusion and communication needed in preparation for that. So, the other thing I just wanted to, set the guidelines for communication. So I kind of talked a little bit about core online hours to allow for people to be able to work in the hours that work best for their brains. For some companies, this is doable. For other ones, maybe not so much. Really depends on, the clients, their expectations, the team, the work that needs to be done, the, available hours. We have team members that are working in different time zones right now. So, core hours are obviously a little bit harder to hit, but we always ask that they have some, a little bit of overlap with the other team members just so that they can pass over work or ask questions or be there for important meetings there. So, and just one of the things that I wanted to mention about the communication tools and flexible working and remote working is, we're a licensed recruitment agency. So we've been talking to candidates like crazy over the past couple months. And it's amazing that the most common question that we're hearing right now is, were you working virtually before COVID? And how has COVID affected your business? So as an organization who's looking to start hiring, you can definitely expect for those questions to be asked. And what candidates are really looking for is, how prepared and how much of an impact did this really have on your organization? And what have you done to be able to pivot your company to support your team? We saw a lot of candidates that were leaving their companies because of the fact that the companies were not listening to the employees and weren't, really, they weren't feeling like they were supported by their organization. So, it's really good to be able to speak to that and say, oh yeah, well, this is what we implemented and this is what we're doing. And the answer of we don't know what's coming next is totally okay. So just, something to think about a little bit here as you're putting together your remote working plans. Okay. Next thing I just wanted to talk about was the COVID wall. This is a topic or a term that we use internally quite a bit. And what it is team members that are hitting this wall. And it's from too many meetings, pressure to answer Slack messages or text messages or emails at all times due to the fact that there's no real separation from work to personal life. Disconnected from their family, potentially for those that are living at home, maybe have their kids at the house or their significant other who is also working from home. You could be in the same room as that person, but still, not feeling like you can actually talk with them. Just a general, malaise towards anything. So, talking about new tasks, talking about anything cool coming down the pipeline, the person's just kind of disconnected really. And, this is caused from obviously the uncertainty of the next little bit here. The virtual working situation for some people, I know that they've always wanted to work in a virtual position. And then now we're hearing from a lot of people that, actually, I don't want to be 100% remote anymore. I actually don't like it. So what you can do to get past this COVID wall is encourage days off. It may seem a little bit backwards right now because obviously we can't technically go anywhere, but just even taking a day off for at-home spa day or a day to take out your pet for a walk or stay at home with your kids or just read a book next to a fireplace for a couple of hours and binge watch something on Netflix. Talking to the employees and letting them know that a day off doesn't have to mean going somewhere. It could just be, I need to shut down my computer and lock it away in a safe for the day just to be able to reset here. Is going to be really important to help people kind of get past this. Introducing injections of fun throughout the week, the day, the month. Even though I did say that people are really done with virtual meetings, happy hours seem to be kind of fallen off. maybe reduce the number of frequency there. If you're having happy hour weekly, try to have it monthly. Maybe what we've been trying to do is like introduce themes to our happy hour. So, okay, this week we're going to talk about places we want to travel to as soon as we can. And people are bringing, you can bring pictures in, you can bring, maybe places that you've been to before, do some pub night quiz competitions. We've seen some really cool ones done there, but just continue to introduce fun into your everyday work. The teams are appreciative of it, but
the question on that,
yeah.
So some people are like, we don't have creative people in the team, so is there a source that you use or you can recommend where people can go and get ideas beyond the internet that, there's an actual dedicated source for this sort of stuff?
So I've seen there's a bunch of things that you can do. So sometimes simple Google search goes a long way. There's lots of people are trying to find new things, new interesting things to do right now. Airbnb does virtual experiences, and this is something that we looked into for our Christmas party. So they'll actually have somebody who will come on to a Zoom meeting with you, comedians. They have chefs that will come in and do like a cooking session, and everything's done over the video calls. So that's something that's kind of different, kind of cool. There are other organizations that will put on like home scavenger hunts, trivia nights, and this is all, it can range from anywhere from your own team hosting it low cost all the way to paying for somebody to come in and host an event. I've got, I think on a couple slides here, we're talking about some of the tools that we really like, but there's, even just simple extensions to your Slack app that can help to engage your team here and inject some fun. There's one called Hey Taco that I think is super cool that I'll talk about, but it's like an appreciation / fun tool that you can introduce just even into your Slack channel at no cost. So we talked about creating balance. So really, talk core hours, setting notification preferences, just talk to the team and see what's exhausting them. See what, they're just like, oh my gosh, if I get another, enter word, I'm going to lose my mind. And then see what you can do to help reduce that stress for them and reduce that, that feeling. So, and then checking in with the team frequently. So this doesn't always have to be done by management. If you're a smaller team, it doesn't have to be done by the owner. It can be, elect somebody on the team who's a little bit of an extrovert or an introvert and just loves to be able to connect with people and say, hey, do you want to, send this person a Starbucks gift card and you guys can get a virtual coffee together, or just check in, give this person a call and try to just check in and see how things are going. One thing to note, though, it's really important to be transparent. So as the person who's checking in with the team, ask them how they're going, or how they're doing and what's going on for them, but also be really transparent about how you're doing and how things are going for you. Because I think that just being able to be, transparent with each other will help with setting, will just help with engagement there. Find ways, with the balance, also find ways to be reflective and positive throughout the week. So take an opportunity. Our Friday and Monday meetings are all about what are you excited about doing and what are your goals for the week. So reflect on what you need to get accomplished and kind of what's important to the team. Just want to talk quickly about employee engagement. So the COVID wall obviously leads towards disengagement of employees. This also will lead potentially to team members leaving the organization if they're just like, I just need to not work for a little while. So the things that you want to look out for in terms of disengagement: longer than usual response time, overly negative response to feedback or issues, dragging on tasks, and general negativity or malaise. So disengagement can also look like overwhelm, exhaustion, and anxiousness. So it's something that you really just, if you are starting to see these signs within your team, another opportunity to check in. Hey, you know what? I noticed that you've been having a really hard time completing this task. Is there a reason why? Can I help you with anything? What's going on for you? Things that you want to avoid is like, why didn't you get this task done? Try to approach the question more as, what can I do to support you on this task? Or what can I do to support you on this thing that didn't really go so fabulously? Why sometimes will feel like an attack to them. So just try to take a step back and do a what or how instead. If you are seeing disengagement on your team, there's a couple things that you can do to kind of re-engage, and this can all be done virtually. So one-on-one conversations via call, via video call, whatever works best for you. Ask how you can help. Ask another team member to reach out if they have a stronger relationship, just how are things going here. Look to see it as an opportunity to temporarily change their task workload or projects that they're working on. Is there something that they're within the organization that they're really excited about that you can get them to work on just to shake things up a little bit here? Take the time to talk to them about future state of their position. So talk about their development plan. It's so easy to kind of bog down in the weeds of the day-to-day work. And it's really nice to be able to take a step back with each of the team members and just say, hey, where do you want to be a year from now? Here's some of the paths within the organization that you could be heading down. Here's some things that we could do. What do we need to get you there? It gets everybody really excited about what they're doing, and ask them, what do you want to be working on right now? And what would get you excited about work again? And then also ask them the question, what don't you like that you're doing right now? What is the task that you're like, ooh, I'm going to leave that one for the absolute last moment because I really don't want to take care of that, or I really am not excited about this. So really check in on, what's going on for that team member by asking them about future state. It gets them re-engaged in their own learning, in their own development, and really shows that the company is interested in kind of what's their growth plan within the organization. Couple of the fun things. So team appreciation always goes a long way. That can be, surprise and delight. So a couple ones that we've done is we've sent like cookbooks through Amazon. We did a couple months ago, we dropped off little succulent plants at everybody's houses. Recently, we did those adult coloring books with a box of pencil crayons, and we're just like, hey, here's something relaxing that you can do on a Friday night if you're sick of watching the same show on Netflix again. How about a coloring book? Just something little, just to say to the team, thank you for everything that you've been doing. Here's a little something just to show our appreciation. Recognition. So that's a program that I was telling you about, Hey Taco, is an online program that you can just attach to your Slack profile. And what it does is throughout the week, you can give out tacos to other people. And it's supposed to be like an appreciation thing. So almost like a high five or a thumbs up or a call out to the team. But what it does is it actually keeps track of who gives the most appreciation and who's received the most appreciation. So make a little competition out of it. At the end of the month, give a $25, Starbucks gift card away to the person who gives out the most appreciation. Verbal thanks. So don't forget to thank your team and talk to your team and tell your team, thank you for all the work that you have done. Thank you for staying with us over the past year. Even though it was crazy, it was busy, we've had, lots of pivots. We really appreciate it. And that could be as simple as just at the weekly meeting, take 2 seconds just to say thank you. And then the last one is online celebration. So this can be done on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's got this super cool new feature now where you can, call out appreciation and celebrations to your team. Super cool. And just say, thanks for being awesome, and share it with your network. It could be also done internally as well, where you can just on your email say thanks to, this person who really showed up this week and really saved my butt on this, that, or the other thing.
So a question for you, Bronwen, going back a few slides here.
Sure.
To tackle this and get this going in an organization, how does one go about starting this, right? Like there's a lot going on, the day-to-day, people have their task, and you've got to still stay on point and keep a business running. Yep. How do you implement this without disrupting anything? For sure. And how do you begin?
So I think it really depends on what kind of structures you have in place in your organization already, because a lot of this if you're doing weekly team meetings or weekly department meetings or one-on-one meetings with your direct reports, this is something that can just, takes 1 minute just in the middle of that meeting, just to be like, hey, you know what? I really appreciate that you jumped onto this meeting last minute and helped me figure out this problem. And just even like small little things can go a long way. And so it doesn't have to be this huge thing that takes 2 hours for you to, put in place, and you have to pull the team together once a week if you're not already doing that, to be able to say, oh, thanks for everybody, thanks everybody for being awesome. Okay, have a good day type of thing. It's something that you can do little injections of it throughout your day-to-day practices. Obviously, the surprise and delights are little programs that you want to implement. It's all dependent on time and budget that you have within your organization. The surprise and delights, I have to say, do take up quite a bit of time to get sent out, because Amazon does not have an easy way to be able to send out little gifts to everybody all in one go. But it's, it's really dependent on kind of what your team is able to take on at the time. So it's, look at, this is like a huge list of things that you could be doing, and see if there's anything that can be slowly introduced here. So like I said, maybe it's during the one-on-one, you take 5 minutes to be like, this is great. Thank you for helping me out with this, and the development plans as well, right? It doesn't have to be a separate meeting that you're doing for the development plans, but maybe it's during the next performance review run that you're doing, or the next annual check-in that you have with that employee, or their 3-month probationary period's up. And we're just going to have a quick check-in. How did it go? Where would you like to see yourself in the next 3 to 6 months type of conversation. So, look to see what's doable within your own organization with the time that you do have, because yeah, everybody's pretty busy. So it's, you don't want to make for extra work here. Okay. Any other questions on that one?
No.
Okay, cool. So tech that we like. So just a couple quick ones. So Hey Taco, I talked about, is an appreciation tool that connects into Slack. Zoom, of course, your Google Meets and Teams is just as great. But one of the things that we like about Zoom is the breakout rooms. So when you're doing competitive, any virtual games, it's nice to be able to use that to break out people into teams for a little bit more of a collaborative feel. Slack, for those of you that maybe don't use Slack, is a great tool. It can be used for teams of any size. There's lots of integrations that happen with it, and it's one way to be able to keep the team all communicated. One that I've been recently introduced to is SoCoco, it's called, and what it actually does is it creates a virtual office. So you can set it up as though you were at the office. People can be in different rooms. There's rooms for meetings where they don't want to be disturbed, but then you can also move your little person into the lunchroom, for example, and you can have chat and video calls with people within the same room as you. So it makes for a little bit more of a Sims feeling work day for yourself, if that's, you want to create that office feeling again. Okay. So this poll, this was done earlier. So this is the one where we're 50% unsure on the number of people, for people that are returning back to the office in some capacity. The last thing I just wanted to talk about here is what to consider when returning to the office. So for those of you that are thinking that you're going to do some sort of return to the office, whether it be full return, a couple days out of the week, or no return at all, some of the things that you do want to think about if you are planning to return to a office space, is that the transition back is going to be just as hard as the transition to remote working. So as much as people are saying, yes, I'm so excited to get back to working in the office, there is still going to be a transitionary period that you have to be aware of. That's going to be just as hard as it was when everybody was moving virtual. So some of the things that we saw when people were moving from working in the office to working virtually is getting distracted by laundry, the couch being so close and being like, I could take a break, and getting distracted by the home things. Now what's going to happen is when you're moving back to the office, people are going to be distracted and wanting to chat with the people that they haven't seen in forever. It's going to be a little bit harder with more people moving around them, more people talking around them, for them to get really focused in on what they're doing. So just keep in mind that it's going to be a transitionary period, just like it was when you moved virtual. Check in with the teams on what they'd like to do. So this does not have to be a big thing. I would actually almost recommend for this to be an anonymous survey. We find that sometimes anonymous check-ins and anonymous surveys with your team actually give you sometimes better results than they do if if they're not anonymous. The team feels as though they're sometimes there's this feeling of, I might be in trouble if I say one thing or another. So I would recommend sending out a quick survey, who's interested in returning back to the office? How many days would you like to go back to the office? And what are you worried about when you do return to the office? and kind of just check in on those 3 things and just see if, what's going on in the team's mind. One of the things that we've seen a lot of is creating pods. So 3, depending on the size of the space, create the same people going into the office on the same day to reduce transmission of COVID. So, just thinking to keep everybody safe, create those pods there. Create and or update your COVID policy. So if you went fully virtual, it's probably unlikely that you created a COVID policy for the past year. It's definitely something that I highly recommend, and I have some pointers on the next slide about what to include in your COVID policy. So just something to think about. It doesn't have to be long and lengthy, but it is something to think about here. And continue to think about how to keep the team engaged, how to appreciate them, and to continue on those growth plan conversations. So don't lose what you've been working so hard on over the past little bit to keep the team engaged and excited and pumped about coming into work every day, just because there is now a common area to meet at. New Zealand. So actually, I'm sure some of you guys have heard that New Zealand has been, up far ahead in the curve of a lot of other places in terms of returning back to a semi-regular working environment. And a couple things that they have implemented to help keep that safe is testing and tracing. So continuing to do tracing, staying obviously the high cleaning levels quite high. So providing wet wipes and hand sanitizers. So additional support for sick employees. Some of the organizations are actually introducing like extra sick days or continuing the option to work from home if employees are sick, to allow for it to be okay for employees to stay home. And then one of the recommendations that New Zealand companies are sharing is to embrace the remote working. So just because you were fully at the office previous to this does not mean that that's how you have to return. So think about, do you need to be in an office space altogether all the time, or is there an opportunity for 3 days working virtually, 2 days at the office? Something to consider. Last point here, so the COVID policy, if you don't have one in place, some things that you want to think about are like, what does the return to office look like? So what are the cleaning procedures? How many people are allowed in your space? WorkSafe BC has guidelines to help calculate this, to make sure that you're not obviously having more people than what is allowed. What to do, what do the employees do when they're feeling sick? What does the team do when they have been in contact with somebody with a positive case? And how or when to return to the office when you have been sick or in contact with somebody who had a positive case. So we actually have we did a webinar on this last year, and I have a document that we can share that actually walks through a lot of this. And helps you put that COVID policy together. But these are kind of just some of the points that you really want to, if you're going to put a basic one together, these are the 4 things that I would encourage you to acknowledge in that policy. All right, that was a lot of information. But any questions that we have?
Some of the questions were asked as we went through, but going back to work,
yeah,
which is huge. I mean, a lot of people may be uncomfortable in doing that. Again, is there things that Entreflow does to advise or can guide or help with the transition or help them create policies, for example? So a lot of companies forget about COVID policies, don't even have HR policies in place. Right?
Yeah.
Is this something that Entreflow can help with?
Totally. So some of the things that we have done are as simple as implementing tech in for the organization. So, helping with any type of software from accounting all the way to HR software to help with this. So HRIS systems, maybe it's a new, payroll system or performance management system to help with taking things more online and facilitating that virtual performance reviews or virtual check-ins. So we've helped there. I have written a bunch of policy manuals over the past couple months here to help with organizations that don't have one in place. And I highly recommend, regardless of the size of your organization, that you do have a policy manual in place. It helps with just setting the foundation for the organization while you're hiring new team members. And if there's any questions, it's a great place for teams or your employees to refer back to. So like, how many vacation days do I get and how do I request vacation is probably something that some people hear a lot of, and that's something that can be covered by a policy manual if you have one. We also come in from like an HR manager, like I can come in as a contract or a fractional HR manager and help with navigating through some of these conversations and the transition plans and the processes that we need to put in place in order to get ready for the transition back to work. So organizing the future state and current state org chart conversations, recruiting plans, like this is something that we do on the regular, is coming in and just helping organizations look at like, what does 2021 look like? Who are we going to need to be successful here? And how do we have conversations with some of the team members that maybe their position's changing or they're disengaged and we just need to have a check-in with them. So that's definitely something that we've been doing a lot of over the past couple months.
Another question is about mental health. So
yeah,
it's a big issue that's come to surface now, and even more so with COVID.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy topic for anyone to talk about at all. So
yeah,
you have companies that you recommend that you work with, that companies can reach out to or give guidance to on how they can tackle this topic within the work environment.
For sure. Yeah, so I think one of the things I would recommend you doing is talking to your benefits broker. So for a lot of, one of the things that you can do is introduce what's called an employee assistance program into your team. And what that does is it provides an anonymous tool for your employees and team to be able to get access to help with mental health. There's some counseling services. If anybody's battling with any sort of addictions, there's support that you can get there. Financial support. So for those of us who maybe aren't the greatest at budgeting, you can actually have somebody and help come in and support you on some budgeting. So it's a fairly low cost thing that you can add onto your benefits plan. And I would urge you to reach out to your benefits broker. The other thing that you can do that, with lower cost is look at upping vacation days within your organization. It's a pretty low cost for the company, but it has such a big value to the team that you are bringing on and the team that you have in place currently, and encourage people to take time off. I think one of the biggest things is that people are feeling like, okay, well, I can't go anywhere. I can't travel. Why would I take vacation time right now? But it's really important for just resetting and allowing for yourself to just have a little bit of a breather and a little bit of a break from work. One of the things that we've actually implemented internally is we have 2 weeks out of the year that we've decided for now are office closures. So we are informing our clients, we're shutting down, not shutting down, but our phones systems, we have vacation requests that are going out, vacation responders that are going out, so that our team can take a full week off all at the same time, and just everybody resets on the same week. So we come back that week, everybody has had a break, and nobody's been, bugged about this little question that's come up because one person's been working. So again, that's something just a little bit different that you can try to help with that mental health piece. And but EAPs are super cool. They're really great. They're anonymous, so you as the management team or as the business owner and as the team, you don't have to worry about somebody else finding out potentially about what's going on that you may not be wanting to share. So it creates that safe space for your team.
There's another question. I think you did answer it, but I think in more detail. Coming back to the office, do we need to set a limit to the number of people to be in the office?
Yes. So it's highly recommended by WorkSafe to review your square footage of your space. And there is actually a calculation. And if I remember correctly, it's like 5 meters squared per person allowed in your space. So I would highly recommend going off of the WorkSafe BC or the WorkSafe, wherever you are located. BC for us, obviously, that's the one that I was looking at recently. So I would recommend using that as your guidelines, just because then if for whatever reason somebody were to say, oh, this organization isn't following proper practices, you could say, well, actually, I used this calculator and this is how I came up with the number of people that were allowed in the space. And then, so that would be my recommendation at this time.
Okay. So just to end this, Bronwen, do you have any takeaways that people should, key pieces of advice from this presentation people should be considering taking away from this event today?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one is always, talk to your team, see what's going on for them, and allow them to be able to provide input in any changes and updates that's coming down the pipeline that you guys are considering. The more that you can get them involved in the decision-making process, the more engaged they're going to be about the changes that are coming. And you may be missing something that you can't, as a leader within your organization, don't see on the day-to-day. So it's really good to, take that opportunity to check in. Next thing is make sure that you have proper policies in place. So make sure you've got your COVID policy, your remote working policy, and that it's super clear for your team members what it means and what those are. Takeaway number 3, I would say, is just take the time, take a minute out of your meetings to show appreciation and have a little bit of fun with your team, because I think with those back-to-back virtual meetings, it's good to have a little bit of a break once in a while.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, there are email addresses there. So if anyone wants to get in touch with us regards to whether it's financing services or HR or accounting, you can reach us here on our emails or Google us. You can find us on LinkedIn as well, and definitely connect with us. I hope this has been a helpful session. It was definitely helpful for me. I had a couple of team members there, so definitely great. And thank you very much, everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us today, guys.